Welcome, everyone. Got another week of our new Student Weekly Checklist webinar series going, and we have a great one for you today. This week is preparing for registration. We're in week 7 of our 8 weeks, which means we're almost done with these 8 weeks. Hopefully, we're almost done with our checklist, but we got some exciting things coming up to keep in mind. I'm going to ask Colin to unmute and introduce our panelists for today.
Awesome. Today we have two main groups on campus representing in this webinar. We have the first year experience, and we also have the College Advising Center. And from the first year experience, we have Jonathan Mans, who's the director, Melanie McManamon, who's the coordinator, me, Colin, I'm the student director, and we have Judith joining us as well, who is the student assistant director. From the College Advising Center, we're going to have three amazing college advisors. We're going to have Katie McFadden, Heather Miner, and Katie Lennon with us as well.
Great. Thanks, Colin. So just a recap of our checklist tasks that we should be working through. Some reminders from last week. Last week we had our finances webinar. If you missed that one, it is on our webinars page on the first year experience website. So you can get the recording there and watch it. It's chaptered out in case you want to watch certain parts. But hopefully last week you completed these different tasks of learning about managing your Lewis and Clark costs. If you go to the weekly checklist, there's a great link there on that task specifically that has a ton of resources that student accounts put together for you all to look through. Hopefully, if this is something that we wanted to do, we enrolled a designee as an authorized party. Remember that this is how you can get friends, family members access to the student account to help look at your finances, make payments, assist in any way there. Completing the health insurance waiver. So if you are going to be waiving the school's health insurance, hopefully we've gotten that checked off of our list. If you haven't yet, you still have some time to work on that. And then finally, settling your student account. There is no check mark there because the deadline for settling your student account is August 12th. And remember that that means you should have either paid for fall 2024 or at least enrolled in a payment plan through Nelnet. And all of that information, again, can be found in the webinar that we did last week or on our website on the weekly checklist. Okay, so this week, week 7, these are the tasks we're hoping that you can complete. The main task that's actually listed in our checklist is to attend this webinar. And there's a check mark because you're all here. We're so happy to have you. You're on the ball, you're ready to go, making sure that you're going to be prepared for registration, which actually happens next week, which is why we're having this webinar this week to give you plenty of time to prepare, think about it, get ready for that, which is happening next week. So the real tasks that I want you to work on and look at for this week are to just prepare for registration. So make sure you have your classes ready to go. You know what time your slot is for each of the registration days, which the College Advising Center will talk more about during this webinar. And you'll notice we have a little shout out here. Okay, so we are really hoping to get as many of you as possible to complete these 2 additional tasks. One of them is your student ID photo. And I am actually going to drop this link in the chat here for everyone to click on. Submitting your student ID photo beforehand, before coming to campus, before orientation is going to be such a big help to you. You're not going to have to wait in line. And you're going to be able to get your ID right when you go to check in for orientation. That is a huge plus. A lot of schools don't have that option. And so we really are hoping that you can take advantage of that. The link is in the chat. The photo doesn't have to be super fancy. It doesn't actually have to be a passport photo. You can take it yourself, but we do want it to have certain requirements, which if you click on that link, there's a whole explanation of what your student ID photo should have and what it needs to look like. The other little shout out that we're hoping you can complete is the NSO info form. The link being dropped in the chat now. And that info form is going to help us to make sure that orientation is a great experience for you. It's also where you can preference what t-shirt size you want. So if you don't fill out that form, we don't know what size t-shirt you want, and we're not exactly sure which one to get you. And we want you to have the exact experience, the best experience possible. So make sure you complete that form. Note that you will have to be logged into your Lewis and Clark email in order to access that form. So if you're getting a notification that you're not able to access it, double check that in that browser, you're logged into your Lewis and Clark email. Okay. All right. We are going to hear from the College Advising Center all about registration today. And we have a Q&A which is available here in Zoom. So I just wanted to put a shout out now because we have 3 people in our College Advising Center. One will be presenting while the other will be addressing your questions as they come in. And we will also have time at the end if you think of questions later on. But I just wanted to put a little shout out now that if you have questions as they come up, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. All right, I am now going to pass it over to Katie.
Thank you, Melanie.
Thanks.
Hi, I'm Katie. I'm in the Advising Center, and as Melanie mentioned, registration's coming up. Registration for courses for fall semester is done in 2 rounds. You register for one top choice class on the 31st of July, and the rest of your credits on August 2nd. So because that's around the corner, we're gonna go into a lot of the how to do things in WebAdvisor in this webinar. And there's always lots of Q&A, so feel free to ask lots of questions. So hopefully by now you've taken your placements. Maybe you're working on a retake of the math placement or something, but for the most part, you've taken placements or determined whether you need to. And hopefully you've set up your emergency contact info, because if you do not confirm your emergency contact info in WebAdvisor, you won't be able to register. So make sure you do that. Because those 2 things should be done yet, and we've emailed about it, I'm not going to go into too many details in this webinar about them. But instructions are in week 1 and week 5 of the checklist that Melanie's mentioned. So you can find instructions for it there, or you can kind of reference one of the emails that we've sent in the Advising Center. In this webinar, we're going to focus on how to check your registration times, because the start times for registration are staggered, so they might not be the same as your friend. So there's a way to check your exact start time. And we'll talk a little bit about how you develop a list of courses if you haven't done that already, and then how to put those courses in your preferred list. And we often call this preferred list like your shopping cart, because it saves those selections for later for registration day, so that on registration day, you don't have to go around looking for options and figuring out which ones fit together. You've already done that work. It's all in your shopping cart, and you can do registration hopefully pretty quickly. So first, I'm going to show you how to find your registration time in WebAdvisor. I think I'm going to go through this twice. So just stick with me the first time, just watch. Then I'll repeat the steps. In WebAdvisor, in the student menu, in the lower left, you click registration permissions. Okay. And on the next screen, I know the screenshot says fall 23, but yours will say fall 24. And you'll click the little radio button and hit submit. And then the chart that appears on the next page is like your chart of when you register. So the first line is your start time on July 31st. This is the time when first years you can register for 1 4 to 5 credit class. Transfers you can register for 2 4 to 5 credit classes. And you notice that that first round stays open until the next morning, but the closer you register to your start time, the better selection you'll have. The second line is the time on August 2nd when you can register for the rest of your credits. And notice that time stays open for a while, stays open till mid-August, so you can make some changes later. But again, the closer you can get to your start time, the probably the better selection you'll have. And then because people always ask, that third time, the third time is when you can make changes during orientation. Right? So let's just go about, I'm going to do this one more time. So find your registration times. You're going to do registration permissions, select the only option on the next screen and hit submit. And then the chart is round 1, round 2. Hopefully you'll get the rest of your credits on round 2. Round 3 is just to make changes during orientation if you need to. These are all in Pacific time. These times are listed in Pacific time. So if you're in a different time zone, just do some time zone math, maybe set, a reminder in your phone or put a big note on your fridge or something, so you can remember what times each day that you're starting to register. Okay, so that was checking your registration times. Now developing a list of classes. This is where some people just, it's quite a shift from high school for a lot of folks. Like in high school, a lot of people were used to less choice. And so it can feel really exciting to have so many options available to you, and maybe also a little overwhelming to just have so many options available. So for developing a list of classes, just as a reminder, if you're a transfer student, your situation is probably really particular to where you are at in the major and how many credits you're bringing in. And that's something you want to work out with your faculty advisor. But for first year students coming in general, here's kind of a formula or guideline to think about your selections for fall. Most students do about 4 main courses, 16 to 18 credits. One of those classes will be core, your words or numbers class. And then you've got about 3 other spots. And I would recommend trying out some areas of interest. So you might feel really decided on a major, you might feel really undecided on a major. But either way, you want to start with a couple courses that let you try out some of those areas of interest. And a 4th class, we encourage people to take something just for fun. And by that, we mean maybe a course you hadn't been able to try in high school, your high school didn't offer it, you heard from a friend it's a great class, it just sounds really interesting to you, or it's a great professor you've heard about. That's great. There's room for that in the curriculum, and we want you to try things like that. That's kind of the general idea. If you're struggling a bit with, okay, I kind of know my major or areas of interest, but I'm not sure what that means, like what that translates to. This getting started in a major or minor page on our website is designed to give you recommendations for classes to start with in each area. So you might scroll through here and who do I want to pick on? Colin, let's pick on Colin. Colin, you're very experienced student now. But if you think all the way back to the summer before first year, what did incoming student Colin, like what were you interested in?
I'm a rhetoric and media major, rhetoric and media major now, but I was originally really interested in just history.
Yeah, okay, great. So you would have scrolled down to history. And here's the history department telling you if you're interested in history, here are some classes to consider. Did you try any of those first time?
No, I didn't. I take them now though.
Yeah,
I
they
take
might
them
be
now.
offering different ones in fall. Yeah. It doesn't mean you have to take all of them, but they're recommending. Here's some ideas to start with, and here's some other ideas to start with. And what you'll notice is some of these recommendations are in the 200 level, but courses that have an F in the title are, that's the department signaling that regardless of the number, it's appropriate for an incoming first year student. It's okay for a first year student to take. So I point that out, we get that question a lot. So you might write down history. Let's pretend you had an inkling at the time you were also interested in rhetoric and media studies. You might have clicked here and seen that really the introductory course was recommended. Okay, so you'd start just going through this website and making a list, like brainstorming a list. And you'd write some top choices and you'd write some backups. And along the way, you might see something you had not thought of before. Like, oh, actually philosophy sounds interesting. Like, let that guide you a little bit in making your list. And then it would be time to start to put those things in your cart. Judith, you want to screen share? Judith has kindly offered to demonstrate this part because I don't have access to the same screen that you do.
Yeah.
So can you go back to the main student menu, Judith? We'll pretend that you just logged in. In fact, because WebAdvisor has such a short
pretend.
map, you exactly, you have to log in. Lovely. So yeah, go to student menu. So in the lower left, you'll do register for sections. Then click search and register. You put in the term, yep. And then for subject, let's put in history. We'll do a combo of a Colin/Judith. Maybe rhetoric and media studies. And what was incoming student Judith interested in?
Psychology.
Yes, do psychology. Great. And then I would just hit submit. Like in my opinion, this almost works better the fewer things you try to click on. So now what appears is the list. It is everything the department's offering. So you're probably focusing a little bit on the lower level courses. And anything you check the box for in the left-hand column, it's going to put it in your shopping cart. So let's click the first 4 history classes. Those were all recommended in the Getting Started page. And are there any of the 200 level, Judith, that you're just like, wow, that sounds great too?
I've taken it before and I 100% love it.
Great.
In history.
Good, you get personal recommendation. Okay. Then in psychology, do you want to pause for a moment on the intro classes?
Yeah.
So you could kind of put your cursor there around, just point out that there's 2 introductory classes. They're both introduction to psychology. They're just different times.
Right here.
Beautiful. And I'd almost click both of them because it's easier to check the days and times and compare once you're in your shopping cart. It's a shorter list. So just click both. And maybe down to rhetoric and media studies, which should be similar, where there's a few different options for intro. Yeah, let's do both of those too. And then at the bottom, you'll do submit. Now they're all listed there in kind of a little clump. Yep, and this is your shopping cart. You could now go through and look at the days and times. You want to click on one of those titles, Judith, just note, like, if you want to read more about it, you can click the title of the course. It opens a page with a bigger description and the professor's name and email. If there's any prerequisites, it will be listed here. And let's say you compare the days and times and you realize that one of the sections of psychology conflicts with, you know, your core class or something else. Next to the psychology class, you could say remove from the list, like remove from your shopping cart. You could clean things up a little bit too as you compare. And at the bottom, click, yeah, submit. Well, can you go back to the student page, Judith? We're going to repeat the steps partly just to repeat them, but I also wanted to show a course like chemistry that has a separate lab section, if that's okay. So we'll repeat the search steps, register for sections, yep, search and register. Fall, let's do chemistry, and yeah, yep, and then just click submit. Chemistry 110 is a course where you have to select one lecture section. Yeah, those kind of 4 right there are lectures. And you have to select one of the 110L's labs. And you have to register for the pair of those together or you'll get an error message. The pair of them is considered a single course. It's just for registering the days and times, you need one of each part. Yeah. Now Heather and Katie, I know I haven't been looking at the Q&A that's coming in at all. Are there any things like immediately you already know we should go show again or take a look at?
I don't think so. I think there were just some questions about, you know, if a class is waitlisted, you know, what do I do? Do I register for another class and waitlist? So there's been a little bit of that, but not much.
Okay, so let's actually, Judith, can you go back to the main screen? We're going to pretend it's registration day. Can you go back to the main screen? So it's registration day. And instead of doing register for sections, go back to. Instead of doing register for sections, you're going to click register and drop sections, which is like a shortcut to your cart. It's a shortcut to your cart that's all waiting for you. So it's registration day, you bring up your cart, and let's say on registration day, on your round 1, you have a little bit later time, and by the time you open it up, Intro to Psychology is full. So can you highlight, Judith, the numbers, like the class seats that are available? Yeah. So right now there's 20 seats available in psychology, but that's a class where those seats go a little quickly. And maybe you get to it on round 1 or like round 2 and it's full, but you wanted to take the class. So in the left little box, you'll choose waitlist, which is your way of saying there's no seats available now, but I would like to be added to the waitlist for that class. And then you should put register next to a backup option. Yeah, sure, rhetoric and media studies. Yeah, great. So with waitlist and register selected, at the bottom, you can click register. Or I agree, submit, yeah. Yeah, it's giving Judith some error messages, which makes sense. But on registration day, it would say, okay, you're on the wait list. Yeah. What's up, Heather?
We're getting a couple of questions about core. So just to let you know, yes, you are already registered for either a words class or a numbers class. Whatever you are registered for in the fall, you'll take the other one in the spring. So if you're registered for words, you'll take numbers in the spring. If you're registered for numbers in the fall, you'll take words in the spring. You can see what core class you're registered for in your shopping in this preferred section list. So down at the bottom of Judith's screen, it shows the classes that she's already registered for. And she's a continuing student, so she's already signed up for excellent classes for the fall. And so this is what all she's registered for. For incoming students, the only class that will show up down there is your core section. So it'll tell you day, time, professor, what classroom it's in. And then the more you register for, the more classes will be added to the list down at the bottom of this page. So hope that helps. Let's see.
I was gonna say, usually this is the part where we kind of pause and really let the questions come in and go from there, I think.
Yeah, we've had a couple questions about like the July 31st registration in just the one class. So I just want to reiterate that we've already put you in your core class, as Heather said, and then you're just going to choose one class on July 31st. So where Katie has the screen in the shopping cart, you will just select register for the class you want the most. So this class doesn't have to be a gen ed. It can literally be the class you want the most, or the class that maybe has the fewest seats. So there was a question about whether Eli or REMS would fill up quicker. Eli has fewer seats saved for first year students, so there's a chance that those will fill up quicker. So take that into consideration as well.
Yeah, so as you're registering, the available spots in the classes that you're interested in will change. So because other people are registering at the same time that you're registering. So for example, that psychology class that that Judith has in her cart, Psychology 100-02. Just to kind of reiterate, the numbers over on the side where to the right where it says 2040. The first number is the number of open spots in the class. The second number is the total number of spots. And the third is the number of people on the wait list. So incoming students can register for any 100 level class or any 200 level class with an F that has open spots. So as long as there is some number above 0 in that first column, you can register for it. Hopefully that helps. Let's see, what other questions are we getting?
Yeah, we're not getting a ton, and most of them have been answered.
Let's
I think
see.
there was a question about whether intro courses will be offered again in the spring, and yes, for the most part, all of these classes will be offered again in the spring. Things like Chemistry 110, those ones are only offered in the fall. So there are some that are sequential and are fall only classes, but I think you can talk to your advisor if you have any questions about what might be offered again in the spring. But things like Rhetoric and Media Studies 100, Psych 100, art classes, those will all be taught again later.
Yeah. Something that you may not know to ask, so I'll just say it, is there are certain areas that if you're interested in them, you should definitely prioritize registering for them in your first round of registration. So psychology is the most popular major on campus. You're interested in a psychology class, your chances of getting into a psychology class are much higher if you register for, you know, a psych class in the first round of registration. If you're interested in really any creative class, theater classes, studio art classes, creative writing classes, those kind of classes all tend to fill very quickly. So those are also classes that you would want to prioritize registering for in the first round, knowing that if if in your dream schedule you wanted to take psychology and theater, eventually, like, you will get into those classes. You may not get into your perfect schedule in your first semester, but like Katie said, classes are offered every semester, and those classes that are really popular, they're offered every semester. And if you can't prioritize it in the fall, you can prioritize it in the spring. So and you can talk with your advisor about those kind of logistical sort of questions. Let's see, there are more questions coming in. So Where does it show how many credits a class has? Over on the far left, it'll say, yeah, so chemistry is a 5-credit course. It says the lab is 0 credits, but that's just kind of like a quirk of the system. Chemistry, the lecture and the lab together are 5 credits. You get a little bit more credit because you're going to be in class more than in a regular 4-credit class. But other classes are 4 credits. Most PE and music lessons are 1 credit. Yeah.
And I don't know if, if you're a transfer student watching, just remember you can register for 2 classes in round 1. So you can register for 1 class if you're an incoming first year, and that transfers can register for 2. Oh, and a couple
Yeah.
questions about
Oh.
order. Like, oh, you want to go?
No,
Okay.
I'm sorry. We had a question about like, can we see spring classes? I'm just
You
gonna
want to
throw
do
this.
it?
I'm gonna throw it out there for you
Let's do
guys.
it. Let's do it.
Yes, you can. If you go in as a prospective student and do not click the student menu, you should see an option for spring.
No,
So if you, huh?
You can also do it from the student menu. Judith, click students.
Okay, well then that's different. Last
can do it.
spring.
In the lower left, do search for sections. That's the trick. 'Cause
Oh, gotcha.
It's window shopping with no functionality. Like, you can't put stuff in your cart, but you can see spring.
Yes. So if you're worried about like a biology class or something like that and if it's offered, you will see it there. So can you click on biology? Well, that was the specific course.
And spring 25 too, Judith. Sorry to be a nitpick, but you can. There, you can see ahead.
And there you go. So Bio 100 will be taught in the spring. So I wouldn't get too far ahead with all of this, but if you are worried about like a specific class and whether you could take it in the spring, you have that information there. Let's see, there was another one about. Okay, we answered that. So do seniors get first dibs at registration, then juniors, etc.? Yes, that's how it will work moving forward. So right now as a first year student, we save seats for you guys. And then going into spring, you'll fall into that senior, junior, sophomore, freshman. Freshmen actually, I think, still get first dibs in going into spring, right, Katie?
Yeah, whatever the system is, it does prioritize seniority, and if there's an exception, it's because departments are reserving for first years. But in general, the concept is correct. Yes.
Yes, and someday you too will be like, "Oh, I'm a senior. I get dibs on everything, and it's great." Like Judith and Colin, they're like, I'm upperclassmen, man.
Yeah.
You too will be an upperclassman someday. You will get there.
Can we do this question, which is a great question? Is there any value in getting required classes out of the way, even if they're not a top choice, or better to prioritize exciting stuff? One thing that comes to mind is sometimes it's a common assumption from incoming students that general education should be completed as soon as possible, or in the first year, or I hear students say, I heard you have to do it in the first 2 years. So that's not true. You have your entire time at Lewis and Clark to do general education, if that's what you mean by required classes and getting it out of the way. If you want to study overseas in a certain, in a certain language, and you would want to start that sequencing early. Sometimes people want to keep going with language right away because they don't want to lose those skills. I mean, I can think of exceptions, and you want to be excited about the classes your first term. Like, you want to have things in there that you're like, yes, good. You don't want to just fill it with obligation, what feels like to you, obligation, obligation, obligation. So I would encourage you to think of some balance. You want to add to that, Heather? I saw you.
Oh, I 100% agree. And I would also say, there's a really good chance you're coming to Lewis and Clark, you're interested in a lot of things. And so, there is a really good chance that something you're interested in will fulfill a gen ed. And so a good place to start is just lead with your interests, register for stuff that sounds good to you, and then you will meet with your college advisor or your faculty advisor many times, and we will look through things like how are things going with gen eds. And if we get to the end of, or sometime in sophomore year and there's just a huge list of them, we might be like, okay, let's lean into these a little bit more. Or maybe you're a STEM major and you just don't have a lot of room in your schedule for non-STEM classes until later on. That's okay. We'll help you to figure out where to, find good gen eds and slot them in and everything, but lead with your interest because that'll make things so much more, I don't know, make a better first semester for you, make a better second semester, make college better. Let's see.
So this is a really good question about like what to register for first. Would you recommend registering for an art class over a psych class in round one? That really is going to be like your personal decision. So whatever one you want the most, I would register for. They're both going to fill up quickly. Both will be offered again in the spring. And if you don't get into Psych 100 in the fall, it's not going to put off graduation if that's what you're planning to major in. So that one you're going to have to decide, but you won't go wrong there.
Here's a question that's really good. Is it possible to speak with an advisor before registration to get an idea about what they recommend? Yes, 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 yes. Judith, do you mind opening another tab and going to the College Advising Center website? Because I want to show a couple of things. Yep. Oh. Yeah, just advise. Yeah, CAC actually. Perfect. There we are, College Advising Center. So, yes, we would love to talk with you. And here's a couple of ways to get in touch with us. One, click on make an appointment. Make an appointment with us. You can meet with the person who's been emailing you all summer. Click on our title, our name. Or if you just want to see the next available, click on next available, and it'll just show you the appointments that are no preference, and it'll show you the ones that are coming up. We're pretty busy apparently. So the other way to get in touch with us is to go back to the College Advising Center, please. And then scroll down. Scroll down. And ta-da, we have all of these drop-ins. So between, could you scroll back up to this week, please? Thank you. Keep on going. Keep on going. We all are holding lots of drop-ins. Some of us are holding them today. I'm having drop-ins, this afternoon. So, and Katie McFadden has them later this week. Pretty much we all have them next week before registration, during registration. So if we don't have openings for appointments, please come to our drop-ins. And drop-ins tend to be shorter appointments, 10, 15 minutes, depending on how many people are at drop-ins. But we can kind of get a lot done in a short amount of time. So that can be really helpful. Also, email us. We have emailed you a ton this summer, I know, and we would love to hear from you. So if you have like an idea of a schedule that you're thinking about and you want some feedback, let us know. We have lots of opinions. We are happy to share. So thank you very much, Judith. But yeah, please get in touch.
There's another one about what does it mean when a class has a status of waitlisted. So the way things have worked for you guys is our current our returning students have already registered for classes before they left at the end of spring. So each summer, the departments go through and they save seats specifically for the first year student. So if you're seeing a class is waitlisted, it means that seats were not saved for a first year student, and that our current returning students had already filled that up. But it is something that you can waitlist yourself for, and then you can actually go to that class on the first day and the professor will let you know if there's room for you to take that class.
Are finals at different times than the classes?
Yes,
Yeah,
including some on Saturdays. So,
yeah. Yeah, there's a final schedule that is posted, perhaps already, but certainly later in the fall.
let's see, any more?
We answered a question about AP. I might just flag that up.
Yeah.
For AP credit, if you have AP or IB credit, actually, Judith, since you're sharing, can I use you as my guinea pig again? Could you please click on 4 new students over on the menu on the side? And then could you click on the FAQs below that 4 new students over on the side? Yep. And then one more click, FAQs, first year students. Okay, this is a really helpful page. A lot of the questions that we've been answering, a lot of the emails we get, we borrow a lot of language from this because they're good questions and they're pretty, we get them a lot. But for AP credit, can you click on placement exams, advanced credit, transfer credit? First up, if you have AP credit, it might or might not affect your registration next week, depending on what you have credit for and what you want to register for. But the first place to start is knowing if we have received, excuse me, your credit yet. And so you can check that in WebAdvisor. This gives you step-by-step instructions. Log into WebAdvisor, go into test summary. If you have AP or IB credit, it would show up there. That's also the place for everybody else. In addition, you can see what your current ALEC score is, your language placement, like all that kind of stuff. Your SAT scores will be in there randomly. So this is where you can see if we've received your credit. And then if to know whether or not that affects your registration, there will be a note in that getting started on a major and minor page if you have like credit for AP Psych, for example, or AP Stats. And it will tell you what to do if you have credit and how that would affect your registration. But if you have credit for things like environmental science or AP language, you can go into the advanced standing section of the catalog, follow that link and see how that might affect your placement. But I'll just tell you right now, just because a lot of people have like credit for environmental science and AP Lang, it doesn't affect your registration at all. Like it won't. But anyways, if you do have kind of like questions about those sort of extraneous credit from before you started at Lewis and Clark, check out this FAQ, and then you can follow up with your college advisor for more information for sure. Thank you, Judith.
I was typing an answer to this, but I realized that maybe I should read it out loud too. Someone asked, do you have to register for the language class that you got on the placement exam, or does it automatically do it? Which is a great question, and I can understand it since we placed you into core, into words and numbers. But core is the only class we put you in, we place you in. And so you will need to register yourself for language. we won't do it automatically. And depending on the language, it may be offered every term, or it might just come around once a year. So it might be helpful to check.
Where can I see the major I chose? Everybody enters into Lewis and Clark as an undeclared major. So you might have shared with your college advisor earlier in the semester or earlier in the summer what areas you're interested in, but you're not declared as a major. Nobody is, even transfer students coming in. Everybody has to declare a major after they've completed 45 credits. That for some transfer students, that might be in the fall. For some of you that are coming in with lots of AP or college credit, that might be in the fall. But for most students, that's not until sometime in sophomore year. So you don't need to worry about like sticking with something that you said earlier on or something. It's really about what you're interested in now. See. Oh, it is not a dumb question about registering on July 31st because WebAdvisor is awful. You probably noticed it's pretty old and clunky. And so yes, you have to like select register and then click I agree submit to actually register for a class. You are not the only one that has questions about that. This has stumped students in the past and they're like, but I selected register. I thought I was registered. WebAdvisor is way more old school than that. So you have to actually click, select register and I agree submit to actually register for a class.
You just
I
want to
think-
show it one more time. Judith could, because it just gives an error message, but
Yeah.
The biggest thing is to go back in and check after you think you have registered, is to go back into that shopping cart again. And once, if you've successfully registered, it will be down at the bottom with your current core class. So you'll see it there. And Judith will show you kind of where that will be.
To register and drop. Yeah, yeah. So let's pretend it's registration day. Judith, you want to register for the a history class maybe? So next to it, she'll click register and then all the way scroll to the bottom. I agree, submit. Oh, gave an error message. Sorry, Judith, you can't take history. It conflicts with your English class. But that's where error messages appear. And then if it does, yeah, Colin, that's good, Colin. You're giving me a good, oh my gosh.
Yeah, sure you're not a theater major.
Yeah, you did a great job. And then if it does work, it takes you to a new kind of like confirmation screen, like you've registered. Oh, someone's asking about course descriptions for PE.
I actually do have this because another student, unfortunately, when you go and look at course descriptions for PE and WebAdvisor, they are not there. And so I will put a link into the chat with PE with a finding out where PE course descriptions are.
Heather,
Yeah,
while you pull that up, we got a question that says, how soon do you know if you were able to register or if you were waitlisted? It will be automatic that it will show that you're registered for the class. It will never waitlist you for a class. So if you try to register for a class and there are no seats available, you will get an error message letting you know that there are no seats available. And then you have to manually go through and do the action box on the left, select waitlist, and then hit submit.
Yeah, so waitlisting is really just something you do when a class is already full. It's not as if on day one you can register for something and then like waitlist reserve a seat in something. You can only waitlist for something if it's already full. You want to be added to the waitlist, and then you can register for a backup. Is it required to take a language class in fall? Oh, yeah. Do you want to do that one, Heather?
Go for it.
Well, I was gonna say no, and it could be a smart thing to do if you're looking to go overseas or you want to major in a language or major in something that requires some advanced language, or you just like to study a language up to a pretty high level. Like starting it earlier gives you more options for those things. If none of those things describe you, it's not required to do language in fall. You can wait a little bit on it. Yeah, I don't know what you add to that. No, you can wait. Keep in mind though that most languages, if you're starting something new, most of them offer the 101 section in fall only. Spanish is the exception. But most of the others, the 101 is a fall only option.
We had a question about varsity sports qualifying for PE credit. Yes. So if you're a fall athlete, you need to register for your sport. So when you're looking through the list of classes, it will say PE 102 and it will also say varsity, whatever. So varsity volleyball, varsity football. Some of our seasons are split. So like golf, you will get the credit in the spring. So you need to be sure to do that. Same with basketball. So if you don't see your varsity sport there now, it's something you'll take in the spring, you'll register for in the spring. You can get credit for up to 4 PE classes. So 2 are required, but if you're a varsity athlete, it's easy to get 4 right away.
Everybody's had great questions. With 5 minutes to go, we've answered 76, says this little box. 77. They're great.
Colin, what is one of the coolest classes you've taken that has nothing to do with your major or minor?
Whoa, great question. My favorite classes that I've ever taken, and kind of fell in love with the professor the longer I took it, would be I took it, I believe, the fall of my sophomore year. It was Indian philosophy taught by J.M. Fritzman. Fritzman is just a joy of a person. He likes drinking wine and eating pizza on his off days when teaching. And if you ever go into his office hours, he's just a joy to talk to. And the class was really cool. There's just so much insight into Indian philosophy that I learned during that time as well.
That's great. That's being offered in the fall. So that's a great, yeah. Judith, what about you?
Yeah, it was actually an intro class, and it was intro to anthropology, with Kim Cameron Dominguez. Amazing. One of the best ways that I could have started my college career. She was so supportive and very helpful. And just me being a wee little freshman in her intro class, very helpful. And so were the people in the class that were seniors taking care of gen eds. It was a great dynamic in the class.
That's awesome. Yeah, those are actually 2 excellent examples of classes that you probably took for interest, and then they both knock out gen eds. So example of like lead with interest for sure. That's awesome. I think the sociology and anthropology classes are awesome. Thank you.
Can I also give a shout out, or I actually have a question. I know the College Advising Center has a really great kind of backup website for
Oh,
backup courses. So there was
yeah.
one semester my first year where all my classes were filled up and I didn't know what classes to take. And you guys have a website of like underrated classes. I forgot the name of it, but
We
yeah.
do. Yeah. Judith, can you go back over to the College Advising Center website? And then over on the side, can you click resources for students and faculty? And then if you scroll down, it is called Hidden Gems. I will not take credit for the name. Katie McFadden came up with the name, but I do maintain the website, and yes, I think it's great. I think it's really helpful. These are not classes that are only open to first year students. So there's going to be like a 300 level art history class. Probably you can't take that to your first semester, but this is just a great place to find some classes that you might not automatically like leap out at you on WebAdvisor. Yeah, there's some cool stuff in health studies, in ethnic studies. There's some really cool law or philosophy classes. The philosophy class department does a lot of these like topic sort of classes. They might be one-offs or something, and they're just really interesting. Apocalyptic imagination, always pretty popular. A lot more Old Testament than zombies, but also some zombies, I think. Ballet, that's amazing. Take ballet, that's so cool. Yeah, there's some really, really great classes out there, and this is just another way that you can kind of get some ideas. So thanks, Judith.
Just a little comment on the hidden gems. I have done most of my general education just on accident, to be honest. So now I'm kind of free to do a lot with the freedoms of that I now have. So a couple of these classes on the hidden gems list I will be taking this semester, which I was very helpful because I was a little lost and confused as to what to take since I'm pretty much done. So just now looking, this is very helpful to just kind of spread out there.
Yeah, it's definitely one that I think people come back to after year to get some ideas. Actually, I'm typing this, but I'm just going to answer it live. Course descriptions for classes. When you look at classes in WebAdvisor, Judith, can you go back to WebAdvisor and click on the title of any one of those classes that you have. It'll give you a course description there. When you do it in the, when you search for it, and you just see it in like the search list, it'll give you it in a slightly different screen because it's WebAdvisor, it's weird. But you can find course descriptions in WebAdvisor by clicking on the title, which is great. That's another way that the getting started on a major and minor page speaks with this one. So you can get an idea of a class on that website and then come into WebAdvisor for the actual specifics of like when it's taught, who teaches that, where it's taught, and you can read the course description.
Somebody asked how many classes should they have in their carts before registration day, and I just said like having some top choices and then maybe 3 to 6 backups is smart. Having backups is great. It doesn't hurt anything, and sometimes when you're in that a little more of a stressed mindset on registration day, it can be harder to go find backups. You just feel that urgency. When you're more like calm, you're also more open to like, oh, I could try that, and this sounds great, and because you're just in a mood that's more welcoming to lots of backups. Well, we need to call it, Melanie. We hit time.
I think so. There's a little bit of a lull in questions. So I'm gonna wrap us up here. Let's see. I'm gonna drop one more time in the chat a link to the College Advising Center web page, which if you click on that link, that is where you can see the office hours. So if you still have burning questions, go find when an office hour is going to meet your needs when you have availability, and check in with them because they're super helpful. I know I've heard so many amazing things, even with students that I met over the weekend, how great their advisors are. So thank you to the College Advising Center. for everything that you do. I'm gonna see if I can share here the final reminders. Here we are. Okay, so our last minute reminders here. We already attended this webinar, but this week you want to prepare for registration, and a reminder that those registration days happen next Wednesday, July 31st, and next Friday, August 2nd. Remember that this is all based on Pacific time. So if you gotta Google, you know, Pacific time to Mountain time or whatever time zone you're in, just so that you can make sure that you are preparing for the right time when your registration happens. And then the other reminders, submitting your student photo ID photo, and your NSO info form. If you have questions about that, email firstyear@lclark.edu. And then we have our checklist items for next week, being registering for classes, submitting your service day forms, completing the new student survey, and completing the common reading, which we will talk about on our webinar next week. Happening same time, same place here at 1 p.m. And that is our final webinar for the checklist. So we'll have some other additional webinars in case you're interested in learning about other things, but that is all we have for you today. Thank you to all of our panelists, and we hope you have a great rest of your day.